It's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers. This morning I'm looking at a favourite book, one that we've reviewed before. It comes from Tolley and the LexisNexis publishers, and it's called Tolley's Orange Tax Handbook, now for the current financial year 2014 to 15. You can see a copy of it there. This is part 1, which is entitled Value Added Tax. You can see it's a very hefty volume. Consultant editor is Roderick, Cordara, Queen's Counsel. There's the spine and there's the back. You've got some very useful shaded portions for the particular areas you might be interested in, starting with some of the relevant legislation. You can see a piece there. These are actual VAT statutes. Then you go on to VAT statutory instruments, which is the second bit. Then the third bit becomes the European Community link to it. Then you have various other annexes. Then you have VAT notices, a very large number of VAT notices. Then you've got VAT PR and so forth. As I say, it's a very, very heavy book. It's in 2 parts. That is part 1. I don't know how many pages it actually runs to, but there is in fact, as I should have mentioned, an index right at the back. It doesn't actually give you the page numbers, but it's about 3,000 pages, something like that. You can see the front of it, which is there, and then you can see a number of other things, such as the publisher's note. Now, the publisher's note is something you should look at in detail, because each year they publish basically a statement of what has changed and and basically how to use it. Cross-referencing is particularly relevant, which is down on the side there. Then you have the contents. As I say, this is part 1, and part 2 covers very specific areas such as stamp duty tax, insurance premium tax, landfill tax, aggregates levy and climate change levy. There's the spine, and then there's the back again. And this is written in and endorsed by the Chartered Institute of Taxation, which you can see mentioned at the bottom there. This is the start. This is the stamp taxes. You can imagine how wonderful it would be if we got rid of stamp duty, and quite a lot of things would go. Then the insurance premium tax there. Then you've got the landfill tax regulations. Then you've got here the aggregates levy, all very sort of technical stuff, I hasten to add, and then a whole section on climate change. Again, this isn't quite so heavy. It runs again to quite a substantial number of pages, probably something in the region of just over 2,000 pages in total. Now, can I just point out that there isn't an index as such for volume 2. So what you need to do, there is actually a short climate change index, which is at the back, just specifically for climate change. But you do actually need to look at the main index there. There is, again, with stamp duty taxes, there is again an index immediately after the stamp duty details. So you've got to be a little bit careful as to exactly where the indexes are. Now, we've written a review about this. My wife Elizabeth and I have produced an appreciation of the 41st edition for 2014 to 15. We've written the reviews once before concerning these books. There's another book called the Yellow Tax Handbook, which looks at income tax, and I've reviewed that separately. But we describe this as follows. We call it the indispensable reference to the latest developments in tax law, including relevant provisions of the Finance Act 2014. And we've also written another review concerning the Finance Act Handbook for the Finance Act 2014, again a publication by Tolley LexisNexis. Now, this is what we say. Whether you are a barrister, a solicitor, an accountant or a company secretary, or in fact in any way professionally involved in the taxation process, and that includes advisors in any shape and form, you'll need this latest edition of what is a familiar, authoritative and ever reliable 2-volume work of reference. It certainly has everything you need, and it's not expensive. Can I hasten to add, it's not an expensive publication. As each new edition contains the tax legislation currently in force, this new edition includes a significant amount of new material and is endorsed by the Chartered Institute of Taxation, hence the little logo which you can see at the bottom. As I say, it's the 41st edition, so it's been around for a long time, and you'll see it in the law libraries and of course in some of the main bookshops and so forth. The fact is that the Handbook, which is part of Tax Intelligence from LexisNexis as a series of books, has been published annually since 1976, and it attests to its continuing popularity and usefulness. All relevant provisions of the current Finance Act, which was passed on the 17th of July 2014, are incorporated in this edition, together with coverage of value-added tax in Part 1 and Part 2, which covers stamp duties, that's stamp taxes, insurance premium tax, landfill tax, aggregates levy and climate change levy, as I've mentioned before. That's in the slimmer, if I can say, the slimmer orange book. Notably, Part 1 contains a VAT index, and correspondingly there's a climate change levy index in the second volume, Part 2. And as I've mentioned, there's a full index for this Part 1 at the back, but then you have to look in the specific sections for the indexes for each particular tax or levy that we're looking at. These and a number of other useful features make it relatively easy and time-saving too for practitioners to look things up, especially considering that this is a massive and meticulously detailed work of reference. As I say, well over 5,000 pages in total, about 3,000 for the Part 1 and about 2,000 for Part 2. Each of the taxes covered are arranged in separate sections, with each section arranged in the same order, namely UK statutes, statutory instruments, EC legislation for VAT, extra statutory concessions, statements of practice, and VAT notices with the force of law. That's an interesting way that they deal with VAT notices, I hasten to add, but however. Also provided are selected press releases which refer to published and unpublished views of professional bodies reproduced in the Handbook or in Moore Stephens' Orange Tax Guide. Also, there's an index of words and phrases which I found particularly helpful at the end of each section. And another useful feature as you're thumbing through the text is the item reference printed in bold type in the outside top corner of each page. All relevant cross-references are included, and there are statements of practice, interpretations, newsletter articles, and much more besides. Further expert commentary on the legislation covered in the Orange Tax Handbook is also included in the Moore Stephens Orange Tax Guide for 2014-15, which is also available from LexisNexis. Together with its companion volume, which I've mentioned, the Yellow Tax Handbook 2014-15, this also includes other key areas of taxation, and so we think the Tolley's Orange Tax Handbook is exactly what you, as a tax specialist, need for your library, whether you be a lawyer or an accountant. And the publication date is cited at July 2014. Let me just refresh your memory about this. This is the first volume. As I've indicated, you've got a number of important, when you look at the structure of it, you do have amendments which are listed. This is on VAT. For instance, just taking it right at the bottom, you'll have various commentaries and amendments, and it is also very useful. There's, for instance, in addition, things like commencement. You've got various diagrams and block statements. Then you've got the various other bits and pieces. And do look, you'll find the numbering there on that side there, if you can see it. And you also find the other relevant references to this particular part on that side at the top. As I say, this is an important publication, and you go through VAT notices, get a huge amount of information. You see why something like this is so important. And with the second part, which is on stamp taxes in particular, so there's the back part of it, you can see again with stamp duties how it's actually structured. And again, you've got information on the side there linking directly to what the law, the actual authority for the publication of this is. Then you've got, as I say, quite a lot of important points. Again, commencement, amendments and so forth, which are all listed. It does make it a lot easier for you to try to find out exactly what the law is, because that can be a problem. Anyway, can I thank Roderick Cordara, QC, and Tolley LexisNexis for an excellent publication. Thank you very much to all concerned. Bye-bye.